Y'all know that saying about putting all your eggs in one basket, right? It's not necessarily, in my opinion, always the best step to make when it is something that you're dealing in a very volatile scenario, in a volatile, situation, which is called life. PlayStation right now is that company that for the longest time had maintained the eggs in one basket paradigm. Another company that did this for the longest time too is Nintendo. Nintendo put its eggs in one basket by ensuring that all of its games and titles are played within its ecosystem. Now, Nintendo has been successful in doing this. Their games have a lot that go for them. Their platform is also shaped and scaled to support their games and filter out majority of the AAA games and even external games out there. On just one hand, it takes a lot of work to make a Switch port. It's not the easiest thing that you can do. So many development studios already look at the headache and they say, nope, we're not going to even bother with that. When you take this into account, you have to now say, well, I guess we now have only PlayStation and Xbox who both have boxes that, are depending on other third-party publishers at this point. And how is their business right now in terms of what they've done? Have they diversified enough, or are they diversifying enough? And if they are, or if they want to, what is the yield of that? We're going to talk about that in today's video because I think it's actually very important. PlayStation has now basically decided that it's going to go ahead and tweak its original business plan and move and focus more on live service games compared to its traditional games. It had signaled this before. It already decided that it was going to go ahead and dump more money in terms of investment, 60% to be precise, into its live service development, and then 40% will go to traditional single player or whatever other kinds of titles. Now, when that was first put out, they came out and said, you know what, we're going to delay the number of those games we want to dump. But that didn't mean they were canceling them, because more recently, they've basically come out to signal this again. However, here's the challenge that I think PlayStation is facing. It puts its eggs in one basket and has now limited its addressable market in one way. Now, don't get me wrong, it made a second basket, but that second basket is small, which is PC. You see, PlayStation taking its games to PC is a necessity for them because the market is so suffocating regardless of who you are. But the Xbox angle is that one last basket that they haven't necessarily explored, while in the other side of things, Xbox has determined that, hey, that basket called PlayStation, we're going to use it when and wherever we please. This particular business strategy has now freed them from a lot of the, the noise that they're more than likely going to hear from something like that. And now they're pressing forward as Indiana Jones is a game that is raking money in early access from Xbox, PC, and even Game Pass new subscriptions, and will then make its way to 65 million strong PlayStation 5, or 56 million if you look at sell-in/sell through. That's PlayStation's numbers. That's not my numbers. But still, it's 50 million consoles that are going to be able to scroll through potentially their PlayStation store and see an Indiana Jones game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very interesting gaming scene that we have right now. And if you actually think about it, right? How many of these PlayStation games, which are taking their time to get through, the PlayStation sales pipeline before making their way to the second basket, which they've been putting at 12, 15 months. Xbox is deciding, no, we're going to do 2 months. In some cases, day one. Day one. That's crazy with things like, Doom, Dark Ages, possibly. I mean, most likely. And then Obsidian's Outer Worlds Part 2. Those are going straight up day one because the consumer's interest is very limited. I've seen a lot of people. Let me give you guys an example. I want to go ahead and put this example out here. Shout out to audience member of mine, Delusions of Grandeur, because I remember when Black Myth Wukong came out, Delusions of Grandeur was like, man, this game is a nice game I would love to play, but I love to play it on Xbox. I said, go play it on PC. He's got a PC. He's like, nope, I want to play it on Xbox. I said, okay, I get it. Then wait for it to come on Xbox. Well, all this while, they haven't made any announcements, haven't said anything about Xbox, whether the Series S is broken or whatever it is or whatnot, even though Digital Foundry did an analysis to show that hardware comparable to a Series S could play the game, and Game Science pretty much put out this whole thing about it not meeting their quality standards, while Xbox basically, in the most corporate way, sort of kind of almost contradicted their statement. Many people have lost interest from Game Science. They don't want to give Game Science any money. Why? Game Science did not prioritize them. And if your audience and your consumers are not prioritizing you, what you're going to see is the kind of God of War numbers that SteamDB put out when the game came out. You see, one thing about players and gamers is that, yes, as much as you are willing to sell your game to them, they will buy. They're not going to run away from your game. However, if your game is not prioritizing them in the market like it should today, you're really going to see something different. And I think PlayStation read the room based on what the first God of War game did. That did pull in a lot of people, no doubt about that. However, from that time up through now, the gaming industry has significantly shifted, especially in the second basket, which in this case is PC. Okay, let me go ahead and kind of dial it in real quick. Let's look at PlayStation's published games on PC, right? Let's go ahead and take a very quick look at what's going on. The first God of War game that came on the PC platform was the 2018 God of War. That game launched in 2022 on Steam. It launched on Epic Games Store as well. In that time, how many games were published altogether on Steam? There were 12,000 games published on Steam in that year. Since then, 2024 is now approaching almost 19,000 games so far. We got one more day and change to go. We're going to see this number. This is crazy. So in that time period, when they decided that they were going to try to replicate that same delay, you already see a big discrepancy as to how many people went ahead to, buy their Ragnarok game. It's actually a very simple equation. Putting your eggs in one basket has basically put everybody in a weird place because the market is what actually put the pressure on everything, and also internal and external forces. I talked about these in other videos where gamers are aging out of just the hobby of playing many video games that they played before. I talked about the fact that the market pressure, new entrants are coming in. Before you know what's going on, another game like Wukong is going to show up, but even from a smaller studio with a much smaller investment. And if they sell that big, they're going to make way more profits than PlayStation would even see on its own IPs that it spends hundreds of millions of dollars on. Because the technology is now available to developers. Things like an RTX 4090. Now, as much as we'll tell you it's an expensive graphics card, it's actually kind of a cheap piece of technology for the amount of work that it can actually pull off, because it's more of a rendering device that's, that can be used for animation, that can be used for all kinds of stuff. And now developers can go in the store and get their hands on things like these. These are things that are put in these kinds of devices that cost thousands of dollars before. Just from an infrastructure perspective, devs have access to really good technology on the market. Brand new. Not even though I was lucky and I found a deal. But that with some of the crazy processors that AMD and Intel are spitting out these days, and you have rigs that can really get the job done and help these game developers be effective. Add to that Unreal Engine, and what I think is probably one of the best engines that you can get out there for free. Well, initially, it already makes the perfect formula for a lot of developers to be able to get out there and make some really good games. A lot of people talk about Unreal Engine and stuff, but man, why don't y'all go, you know what? I'm gonna give you guys an assignment. Go do a side scroller game, or do like a small cutscene or something, or like a small beat 'em up. Like this guy runs from here to here and beats everybody else. Find a game engine that can do it better for you from an open source perspective than Unreal Engine, and see if you can come back with some really good results, because you're going to find out that in order to hit some fidelity, Unreal Engine is your best option. Else, you got to go in-house and go make yourself an engine. And people have been saying some weird stuff about engines. Oh, developers these days don't know how to make their own engines. Man, some people need to stop being armchair devs and just basically, understand that this is a very interesting business area that everybody's using to the best of their advantage. If the big guys, the big guns are using another game engine, then who are you, small team? But it comes down to the fact that right now, multiple aspects and multiple means of achieving gamers' confidence and gamers' attention is necessary across the board for anyone who is serious in gaming. And this is why PlayStation's move to PC is, in my opinion, more and more significant because they cannot maintain that paradigm, especially in a market where their major competitor, Xbox, is on their tail with what I think is the best value proposition that you can get out there. Can you imagine when they're going to be launching Wolverine, right? PlayStation is going to be asking you to pay $70 for it. And then they're going to be launching Blade, and Xbox is going to be like Game Pass. Do you know what that's going to do with Marvel fans? Do you know what that's going to do? Even if they want to play both, do you still know what that's going to do? The barrier to entry is low. They can play the game on their, in quote, Xbox anywhere that they want to play the game. Some really interesting stuff here, guys. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.